I'm joined now by Charlie Creme of ESPN.com. He's their women's bracketologist. Joe Lenardi's for the men. Charlie takes care of the women. Charlie, thanks so much for hopping aboard.
Hey, not a problem. Glad to be here.
Great. So let's get underway here. NEC Championship, that's what we're here for. The Quinnipiac Bobcats, 29-2, taking on the St. Francis Red Flash of St. Francis University. This game being held at Lender Court at the TD Bank Sports Center in Hamden, Connecticut. And this Bobcats team, they have a chance to make history, looking to finish 20-0 in the conference. So, Charlie, I'm going to start with you right here. This Bobcats team nearly got a few votes in the Associated Press poll. What are your thoughts on this Quinnipiac team? Because I know right now in your bracketology, you have them as a 13 seed.
Yes, and I think that's probably 12-13 range is where they would probably land. It's a lot of my decision making on quite a bit of that is, I can't get inside people's heads on the committee, so I use past history, I use comparisons to previous tournaments and where certain teams were seeded, and that's really where I came to the conclusion with where I had Quinnipiac seeded. I know a lot of people aren't happy about it. They look at the great season that Quinnipiac had, a chance to now win 30 games. But to be honest with you, 13, if you look at kind of the teams just in front of them, it doesn't really line up that bad when you compare all the different things that go into it. It's not just a great winning record. That has been proven in the past, and again, that's something that I have to look at to kind of keep. But the best predictor of future is past events, and that's really what I kind of utilize.
So you have Quinnipiac defeating St. Francis in this conference championship, correct?
Well, yeah. Well, in a sense, yes, but I don't necessarily predict winners of future games. In order to do this, I have to kind of take a few liberties with assuming on automatics for winning the conference tournament. So I start using that model, so to speak, way back when I first started doing brackets. I have to essentially pick someone to be a conference's automatic bid, and I always go with the team in first place in the given moment. And in this case, Quinnipiac for quite some time. Now,
obviously, what happens in the regular season doesn't always transfer over into postseason play. Bobcats looking to clinch that first ever and what would ultimately be their last ever Northeast Conference Championship. Let's say that they don't win. And I brought this up to you earlier in the week, and you seem to believe that regardless of the fact that they'd have gone 29-3 all season long, you think they'd come up short in terms of getting an at-large bid. And why is that?
Well, I do, and again, I go back to what I said a few minutes ago about kind of using history as a basis. And yes, the record is tremendous, but the schedule strength of 244 right now, that would, if Quinnipiac were to make it as an at-large, that schedule strength would be unprecedented for an at-large from a mid-major. Usually, the mid-majors who qualify as at-larges, which we've seen a few over the past few years, their schedule strengths are inside of 100. I think maybe the worst of the bunch, if my memory serves me correctly, was a 97 schedule strength for a team that didn't win their league. Middle Tennessee State's made it a couple of years. Fresno State's made it a couple of years as at-larges. Those schedule strengths were considerably higher than what Quinnipiac has. And Quinnipiac's not the only one. I've gotten a lot of conversation from people. Well, I had gotten a conversation from people with Albany as well, but they won. They took care of business, so it didn't matter. But now the conversation is really heated up with Pacific, San Diego State, Toledo, all teams that did not deliver in their conference tournament. And Creighton, who I do have in the tournament, but Creighton's schedule strength is considerably better than these other teams we're discussing. And if I had to pinpoint one thing for you, that would be it. It would be, as I said, historically unprecedented for a team with a schedule strength of in the 240s to make it as an at-large under these circumstances.
Now, is that just because of the out-of-conference schedule? Does that have anything to do with conference RPI?
It has to do with your overall schedule. We can't. I think in this day and age, we can't separate conference games from non-conference games in the evaluation process. It's a schedule because within so many conferences these days, you're not playing equal to what the guy next to you in the standings is playing. So the evaluation is just entire schedule, and it largely is because, to some degree, that the schedule within the NEC is not particularly good. They're playing a bunch of teams that are 300, 250s in the RPI, and that goes into the schedule. And I know the response always is, well, it's not their fault, and I understand that. I can sympathize. However, I'm only basing it on what the committee has done in the past, number one. And number two, if you acknowledge the fact, well, it's not their fault, so we're going to give them a pass on that. Remember, not one decision it does not happen independent. So if you make that decision for Quinnipiac, it affects somebody else who doesn't get a spot. There's a finite number of spots here. So you have to just take everything at face value. That's the only reasonable, fair way to look at it. And at face value, a 244 schedule strength is not good.
Now, you have Marist in as a number 12 seed in the Bridgeport region. They will be heading in as the automatic bid from the MAAC. Now, Quinnipiac is moving to the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference next season. Do you see any challenges going on atop of the MAAC?
Well, it'd be an interesting move because Marist so dominates that league and has so dominated that league for a while, and adding another quality program to it will certainly create maybe a little bit of a different vibe for sure. I think it's great. I mean, I'm not crazy about all the conference movement that we have these days. I don't think anybody really is.
No.
But in this case, it might really add a little spikes to the Quinnipiac program and give the MAAC a little bit more competition.
Absolutely. So before we wrap up here, just want to get your thoughts on the tournament as a whole. Right now, your four number ones are Baylor, Stanford, UConn, and Notre Dame. Do you think a number one takes it this year and controls the house?
I think that's what we've seen the last few years, is that the number one seed is the number one seed for a reason, and the majority of them generally have been getting to the Final Four. And I think based on the regular season, Baylor has to go in as a pretty heavy favorite. They handled Notre Dame. They handled Connecticut. They did lose to Stanford, but those were under some interesting circumstances where Odyssey Sims only played 4 minutes. It was in Hawaii in front of about 300 people. I think both teams are considerably different now. So I think certainly Baylor goes in as the odds-on favorite. And the way Notre Dame took care of UConn 3 different times, Notre Dame has got to be the clear number 2 as well.
All right, well, that's Charlie Creme of ESPN.com. Charlie, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, great to do it, John. Thank you.